Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Life Show. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. It is a great day to be great, and it's a great day to break down some of the biggest differences in ADP between some of our home sites, the Yahoos, ESPN sleepers of the world, and the money sites, if you will, Underdog, Real Time Sports, FFPC, sites where you got to pay a bit more high dollar to go ahead and get in there in the first place. That's right, nerds versus normies, everyone. I'm very excited to get into this and hopefully uncover some ADP values as well as potentially some pitfalls that we want to avoid. Of course, though, I cannot accomplish this myself. Accordingly, I'm joined by Fantasy Life baller, he's not here, Matthew Freedman. Sorry, Freedman. It's just one of these things where Dwayne's computer breaks and it throws my entire life out of whack as well. But truly, I'm happy to be with the one, the only, the Oracle.
Yeah, great to be here. It was great. As you were introducing me as Dwayne McFarland, the lower third said Thor Nystrom. So we were all over the place on that one, but great. Right now we have it correct. So great to be here with you, and even greater to tell people to use the promo code Freedman. Nailed it. This is the earliest that anyone has ever gotten it on the show. Use the promo code Freedman for 20% off of the Fantasy Life Plus package.
Obviously got some preseason football on tonight. Love seeing some, non-practice highlights. I know they're kind of glorified practices, but whatever. AD Mitchell playing ball. Gotta love it. Hopefully we do get some news from an unfortunate practice injury. It sounds like Chargers left tackle Rashawn Slater could be dealing with something bad. Seemingly was a non-contact knee issue. Was carted off the field, so we'll keep an eye on that. But Freedman, speaking of the Chargers, Freedman's locks 1-0 on the season. You nailed the Hall of Fame game, man. Let's keep it going. 2-0. What is your pick for tonight? And just so everyone knows, I have not even mentioned this to you until right
now. I definitely do not have a pick for tonight. I am retiring 1-0 for the season with my hitting.
Undefeated. I would expect nothing less from you, Mr. Freedman. So good stuff. But of course, guys, before we get into our ADP discrepancies, let's get into our DraftKings opening lines. All right, guys, with preseason football in the air, I wanted to ask the question, what is one storyline, usage note, talent, whatever you want to actually make it, that we are hoping gets solved this weekend? Freedman, I will start with you.
So, by the way, I'll just say Ravens playing tonight, Ravens plus 6.5. That is where I would be betting. Okay, moving on.
He's
talking
back,
about something,
my boy.
Talking about something actual. I'm going to be looking at some of these rookie running backs. And again, as you said, these are kind of glorified practices, but I still want to see these rookie running backs doing like NFL caliber things. So part of it is just like, how do they look? Like, do they hit the right hole? Are they running according to the play design? So that's kind of like the eyeball component, but there's also sort of the number, the stats component of this. How much playing time are they getting with the first team? How are they being used? Are they being used only on first and second downs? Are they also getting some third down usage? Are they running some routes? So to start to get a sense for how some of these rookie running backs might function within their offenses, and specifically looking at guys who are priced in the top 36 when we're looking at the consensus ADP big board that we have at Fantasy Life. RJ Harvey, Travion Henderson, Cam Scatabo. All of those guys are being drafted as if at some point you are going to be starting them in your fantasy lineups. How much usage are they going to be getting? And do we have a feeling that at some point they have a real chance of overtaking J.K. Dobbins, Ramondre Stevenson, Tyrone Tracy, like veterans who have done well in their career? So the rookie running backs, those are the guys I'm going to be looking at specifically for the preseason games we have this week.
And it's fine if you guys are high on Harvey, Henderson, Scatabo at those prices. But Freedman, I am tired of hearing the excuse when we start to question early season usage of, oh, I'm playing fantasy football for the playoffs. I'm playing for December. I don't care what the September usage is. It's not like rookies are the only players capable of seeing their roles grow throughout the season. If J.K. Dobbins has a fantastic September, guys, guess what? He's probably going to be used more often on a Broncos team that we do expect to have playoff aspirations. Again, I know we do see rookies have second half breakouts all the time. But Freeman, in my opinion, man, one of the laziest analysis excuses in all of fantasy football.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I like your point about how it can cut both ways. There's a decent chance that J.K. Dobbins does well in September and beats out A.J. Harvey. And I will also say, I'm okay with the idea of drafting some of these guys according to their upside, especially the rookies, but you can't draft all rookies. Right. You can't do RJ Harvey and then Travion Henderson and then Cam Scatabo and be like, okay, I'm going to lose all my games in September, and then I'm just still going to make the playoffs somehow, and these guys are going to be great in the playoffs, right? You kind of have to build your roster with different times of the year in mind, and some guys have upside, some guys have high floor, and you have to construct your roster accordingly. So yeah, to your point, I'm fine with the idea of drafting some guys according to their upside and what they might do near the end of the season, but you can't draft all of those guys on the same team.
Just like we learned in Tropic Thunder back in the day, never go full rookie, something like that. By the way, speaking of RJ Harvey, we did get a note from Benjamin Albright, very plugged into the Denver Broncos. He actually noted, just being asked about taking RJ Harvey in a fantasy draft, he said, yeah, I think you absolutely take a flyer on him given Dobbins' health history. I just don't think you're taking him in the top half of any of your fantasy draft. And someone was like, a flyer? Like, what are you talking about? And Benjamin followed up, I'm saying he's overdrafted. So again, I know sometimes with the beat writers, you got to take their fantasy advice with a grain of salt, but Benjamin always does good work. And again, based on what he's seeing right now, J.K. Dobbins seems very active in this RB1 race. I want to talk about the Travis Hunter dilemma, okay? Because I'm tired of getting talked down to by basically everyone in the fantasy industry who just says Travis Hunter is so talented that why would you not be taking a chance to draft him? And oh my gosh, look, he's playing offense. Freeman, he's playing offense. I was told Travis Hunter wasn't going to play offense. It's like that meme from Twitter where it's like, I was told Steph Curry isn't a good shooter. Like, who out here saw him get drafted number 2, the Jaguars? Immediately we got news that they loved him as a wide receiver and didn't expect him to play offense. That has never been the discussion point. The discussion point has been how much offense. So when I see total raw snap counts from practice saying he's playing a bunch on offense and a bunch on defense, that's cool. I appreciate it. But how much? Are we talking about a 50% route rate? Because I can tell you right now, if Dwayne McFarland sees that, he's going to be losing his mind when he's writing up the utilization report. Or is it going to be an 80% route rate? In that case, that's fantastic. We can start to actually treat him as the baller that we know he is. So again, Freeman, unfortunately in the year 2025, you can only score fantasy points if you're on the football field. It's not like Hunter is just the only talented guy going in that tier of the draft. I've heard everyone likes Jalen Waddle, George Pickens, Calvin Ridley, all these other dudes going at a similar price point. If we see Ridley on the field, if we see Hunter on the field for 50% of the offense's routes versus 80%, that's a huge difference. And I know it'd make a big difference for you in the projections.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned the projections because I'm looking at those right now. And we had Liam Cohen this past week in a conversation with someone throw the number 80% out there. Now, he was talking about snaps, but I mean, I'm assuming Hunter is going to be out there for the plays where they're actually having him run routes. He's not going to be out there doing a ton of blocking. So if he's playing roughly 80% of the offensive snaps, I think it's fair to say, all right, he's probably running 80% of the routes out there. Now, that's a really nice number, but also that's like the average for a number 2 wide receiver in the NFL. So it's a good number. It's a respectable number, but it's not like up there where it's like, oh, this guy is actually out there as a full-time player. It's just like, that's a nice number 2 wide receiver type of number. And then I'd say, let's keep in mind, Brian Thomas Jr. looked great last year. Like, I think he's a legit alpha number 1 wide receiver. And maybe this offense doesn't take quite the step forward under Liam Cohen that people expect. So there are like a lot of ways, and I don't want to be like the wet blanket, but there are a lot of ways in which Travis Hunter could still underperform expectations. Maybe he doesn't play as often. Maybe he's out there, but Brian Thomas Jr. is just such a monster that he's getting all the targets. And then maybe the offense just isn't as good as expected. But one thing I will add to this, I kind of want to see not just how many snaps he's getting, but where they're lining him up on the field. Like, is he playing out wide or is he playing a little more in the slot? Like, I think Travis Hunter as a slot player could be really intriguing because he's a dynamic player, and in the slot, they could scheme up a lot of quick passes to him, which especially in PPR could be a big boon for his value. So not just the number of snaps that he gets, but where on the field they are putting him.
And again, incredible talent. Throw around the generational term if you want to. I'm not going to sit here and overly disagree with you. But guys, it's not like every single top 10 wide receiver turns into a Malik Neighbors or turns into a Jamar Chase. We just saw Marvin Harrison Jr., Roma Dunze last year, not even crack the top 40. We saw Drake London finish as a wide receiver 45. Devonta Smith, fellow Heisman winner, wide receiver 39 as a rookie, despite being the only guy really worth a shoot in that Eagles offense. This was pre-A.J. Brown, of course. I mean, Jalen Waddle, wide receiver 15. Corey Davis, I'm not going to dig up those scars for even. I know both of us were in on our old guy's CD out there. So again, it's just one of these things where I feel like so much of the Travis Hunter discourse is like, oh, he's so talented. How could he not go with them? And I think there's a little bit more to the equation than that. Would really love to see, again, how much he's actively going to be playing on offense and defense as a percentage relative to just, again, practice reps. But that said, football is back. Gotta love football. Football is fun. We are pumped. This has been our DraftKings opening lines. Baseball fans, summer is in full swing and the season is heating up. From midseason rivalries to breakout performances, every game is packed with drama, and thus there is no better time to jump in with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook than right now. And guess what? New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Whether it's towering home runs or clutch strikeouts, you won't want to miss a moment. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using my promo code FANTASYLIFE. The crown is yours, and you can stay in on the action and use those $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. You can combine multiple bets together from the same game. Love the thrill of live betting? Well, DraftKings has got you covered there as well. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen, making watching the game that much more exciting. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports and have a shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code FANTASYLIFE and bet just $5 on any wager to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code FANTASYLIFE only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Again, guys, mission of today's show, nerds versus normies. I didn't want to sit here and say that the bigger money sites are necessarily sharper. I'm sure we might bring that up a few times, but hey, I don't know. If I played my neighbor, who I don't really even know my neighbors that well, so maybe a bad example, but let's say my neighbor isn't a great fantasy football player, I still wouldn't be beating him 99 times out of 100. I'd like to think it'd be about 65, 35, something like that. But, it is a game where, yes, there's plenty of skill involved, but also plenty of chance. So not going to assume that people playing bigger money are necessarily smarter than those just chilling with their home leagues. So again, nerds, those of us that have been playing all freaking summer, using way too high a percentage of our bank account on fantasy versus the normies, the cool regular people amongst us. So Freeman, I took, again, the biggest differences on the average of Sleeper, ESPN, Yahoo versus Real-Time Sports, Underdog, and also FFPC. I just did position ranks, okay? So we're going to show overall, but again, wanted to point out the guys who, again, are more expensive in home leagues versus more expensive in the bigger money leagues. We're going to kick things off buy, sell, and hold style. Freeman, the following three quarterbacks are more expensive in home leagues at the moment: Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, and Jared Goff. Buy, sell, hold. Freeman, Go.
Well, I just want to take a second to say, your neighbor, maybe you should meet them. I love the Mel Kiper. Who the hell is Mel Kiper anyway? And then GM Bill Tobin was saying that his next door neighbor, who was a mailman, would be a better draft analyst than Mel Kiper. Who knows? Maybe your next door neighbor will be a mailman, and he could maybe do the job better than we could. But let's get to it. Talking about the buy, sell, hold for Herbert, Love, and Goff. And I'm going to say that I am selling Justin Herbert. I think Herbert, in terms of talent, is a top 8 NFL quarterback. And I think that he is paired with a top 8 NFL head coach. And like that combination is great. And it makes the Chargers really dangerous. But on offense, I think they're going to play pretty slow and they're going to run the ball quite a bit, which for fantasy doesn't help Herbert out. So I'm going to sell him. I'm going to buy Jordan Love. And Love, I think he has had the time on the bench to develop. I think he's played well in his 2 seasons in the NFL. And then now they're continuing to build the offense around him. And the Packers, I think, have a very underappreciated and solid offensive line. And I think they have, with Matt LaFleur, a top 8 offensive play caller. So Jordan Love, even though he doesn't have that really high rushing ability, I still think that he's someone I want to buy, because if everything clicks right with that Packers offense, you could see a world in which like, oh, Jordan Love just threw for 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns. Like you can envision that world. And then I'm going to hold Jared Goff. Goff has shown enough over the past few years to where we can say like he is legitimately on his own, outside of the scheme, outside of play caller, outside of surrounding talent. He on his own is like a good NFL quarterback, at worst like an average NFL quarterback. And then he has all of those other things going in his factors. He plays indoors. He's got great talent. But I'm going to say that Lions offense, it wouldn't be as surprising if in the first year without former offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, that Lions offense does take a step back. They're not playing indoors as often this year as they did last year. That will be a factor, especially in the all-important second half of the season for Jared Goff. And then also, they're playing a tough schedule. They were a first-place team last year. That means they're going to run up against an opposing schedule of pretty strong defenses. So you put all that together, and I'm not going to say Jared Goff hands off, I'm full on fading him. I'm just going to say like he's in the hold category for me.
So we are on the same page with buying Jordan Love. Again, just 1 season removed from a legit top 5 fantasy finish. And really, guys, I did run the numbers. He barely could even run the football last year. Like the difference between him finishing as like the QB 20, which I think he was, and being a borderline QB 1 was the difference in rushing fantasy points per game between what we saw in 23 versus 24. Again, had the slip and slide Brazilian turf going on in week 1 when he hurt his knee, and then had the groin injury midseason where he had to pull a Byron Leftwich, getting his teammates to try to help him down the field. I do really think, especially you added Matthew Golden as well, we will see Jordan Love getting back and looking a bit closer to that guy in 2023. We are on other terms, though, otherwise, Freedman. I'm going to sell Jared Goff, holding Justin Herbert. I want to hold Herbert because of everything you just said. I do believe in the talent, and I also just think, like, man, Justin Herbert versus Drake May, why are we giving Drake May the benefit of the doubt? I think we all believe at this point in time Justin Herbert is the better quarterback. I think we'd also all take the environment in Los Angeles, and they're also both probably going to be in run-first offenses. Yes, I know Drake May scrambles around a little bit more, but I'm also not convinced that we're going to see May just putting upper echelon Jaden Daniels or anything close to that sort of numbers on the ground. So I'm a little bit more in with Herbert. Chargers, to their credit, man, 0% drop back rate over expected last season, basically neutral, in line with the Bears and the Cardinals. So yes, they used the first rounder on Marion Hampton. They signed One-Eyed Najee, so maybe we are going to see that, just go ahead and show us more rushing overall. But man, when I do look at Jared Goff, it's like he just had the best season of his career. EPA per drop back, pick any efficiency number. Like, this dude did deserve to be in the MVP conversation. I know 5 picks against the Texans or whatever it was kind of ended that narrative, but that still only got us a QB7 finish in fantasy points per game. So hey, if we're in leagues where we do have 5 or 6 points per passing touchdown, I do think guys like Goff, Tua, even CJ Stroud should be boosted up the ranks. But Goff versus Herbert, Freedman, that's our little dilemma here.
Yeah, that's fair. And I love the one-eyed Najee moniker. I will say when the Chargers signed him, he was two-eyed Najee, and then fate took its course. But I will say with the Goff thing, I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I put him in the hold category. But if I thought about the number of times I've drafted Jared Goff, like it's approaching zero. Like he's not someone I'm really actively wanting on my roster. When there are other guys that I could get later who I think have comparable upside or maybe even more upside. So if I had to like have the ability, or if I got the ability to have two sells, I would probably be selling both Herbert and Goff. But I do think that Goff maybe has the higher floor in fantasy comparison in comparison to Justin Herbert. And that has nothing to do with Herbert's talent, who I think is more talented. It really has to do with the offensive environment of the Chargers, where I just do think they're going to play very meticulously. It's going to be the Harbaugh style of ball. And Herbert, I do not think is going to get to throw all that often.
Out of all these guys, the highest individual position ranking on any of these sites is actually going to be Jared Goff over there with Sleeper as the QB 10. Justin Herbert unanimously higher on, again, these home sites. He's the QB 11 on both ESPN and Sleeper, QB 13 on Yahoo, no higher than QB 15 on the other three bigger money sites, if you will. So we'll see. I will admit, as much as I was hyping up Justin Herbert, I don't have him ranked inside the top 12, so that's probably a little bit of a steeper price tag for me, but also a good sign that I will be chasing him at that lower ADP when I'm in some of these bigger money leagues. Let's now do the opposite for quarterbacks, Freedman. We were talking about guys who are more expensive in these bigger money leagues. Maybe you could tell yourself a story that this means they should be values, and accordingly, the normies amongst us should be trying to buy them up more often. Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence, Drake May. Spoiler, Freedman, we have the same picks here, but let's go ahead and reveal yours.
I cannot imagine a world in which I think the Sharps are absolutely correct in wanting Bryce Young. I do not see it. He developed in the second half of last year, which is basically a way of saying he wasn't as nearly awful as he was in his rookie season. But a lot of the production he had in the second half of last season was on the ground, and some of it was rushing touchdowns. That's not really as sustainable. I'm absolutely not sold on Bryce Young, and I can sort of like see a path to like, oh, he's a decent QB2 for you. That just doesn't excite me at all. I'd rather take a shot on someone else. So Bryce Young, I am selling. A guy I'm buying is Drake May. The rushing production is real for him. I have a piece that's out on Fantasy Life right now that looks at the quarterbacks I have projected for 75 carries this year, or at least 75 carries this year. Drake May is on the list. That type of rushing production gives a quarterback a really high and stable week-to-week production floor. And given that you can get Drake May in most leagues outside of the top 12, that makes him, I think for me, a perfect late round quarterback candidate. He's one of the guys that I'm sort of just stashing, hoping I'm not drafting some of these other guys higher on the list, just hoping, all right, I wait for my quarterback. Hopefully Drake May is there whenever I'm finally ready to address the position. It makes sense to me that in some of these money leagues, Drake May is going higher than in your home leagues. He's someone I want to buy. And then the guy I'm looking to hold, Trevor Lawrence, we haven't really seen all that much out of him to this point, but at the same time, he maybe has the best offensive play caller he's had in his career in Liam Cohen. And the guy we talked about at the beginning of the show, Travis Hunter, hopefully a very good number 2 wide receiver who can complement the stud that they already have there in Brian Thomas Jr. So I'm going to hold Trevor Lawrence, but it's more of like I'm holding and praying type of situation versus like I'm holding with conviction.
I'm with you. Again, same picks as Freeman. T-Law, even beyond the whole Liam Cohen thing, I do think actually profiles similarly to what we saw from Baker Mayfield last year. And that is when you have a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and maybe even your wide receiver 3 or tight end 1, you have pretty low ADPs overall. By low, I mean like they're going early on in fantasy drafts. But then the quarterback, interestingly enough, is actually being held back, and he's the one you can get later. So just made a note to myself to go ahead and try to look at that across the league. But I suspect Trevor Lawrence is going to be quite high in that that sort of rating. With Bryce Young, I'm with you. Literally only Josh Allen guys have more fantasy points from rushing production from weeks 13 through 18 last year than Bryce Young. I think we can all agree that Bryce Young is not quite Josh Allen out there. I think he would actually snap in half if he tried to do half the things that Josh Allen does on a football field. So there were a lot of flashes. Okay, number one in big time throw rate. I think he was 6 in PFF passing grade from week 8 on. They added T-Mac. I do think there is a very strong possibility, at least a heck of a lot better than last year, that Bryce Young can be a starting caliber professional quarterback. But you said it, Freedman, like previously, it was like, is this dude going to be out of the NFL in a couple years? I still don't know if he would be on the Panthers if Andy Dalton didn't get in a car crash. Okay, so excuse me for being a little bit skeptical of a second half that, again, had so much rushing production from a guy who we aren't expecting to be this 30, 35 rushing yard per game. Again, really hasn't ever even been that guy going back to the days at Alabama. So I hear you on Drake May. And honestly, I know I was talking about a little bit with Justin Herbert. I don't have a great reason, though, for fading this dude. It's just more so I feel like every podcast I'm on, everyone's talking about Drake May as the late round quarterback. And the fantasy football gods, they don't want us to have nice things. That said, guys, again, when you do look at some of these prices, I mean, we're talking about the QB 19 on ESPN going outside the top 120 picks, QB 18 on Sleeper, QB 17 on Yahoo. Again, Freedman, it's one of those things where Underdog picked him as a top 15 quarterback, FFPC QB 13. I don't like that, but man, if you do miss out on that first crop of quarterbacks, you don't get in the elite guys, yeah, I'm fine waiting because guess what? You can get Drake May and Justin Herbert or grabbing Anthony Richardson. Like, there are so many darts there where if I leave a draft with, say, Jordan Love and Drake May, I'm feeling great about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, it doesn't need to be Drake May. It needs to be kind of quote unquote what Drake May represents, right? If you don't get Drake May because someone else takes him, fine. You can get JJ McCarthy. You can get Anthony Richardson. You can get some other quarterback who's young, still ascending, and has some running ability, right? That's really what you're looking for. Maybe even Justin Fields if he falls far enough down the board. So Drake May, I like him, but he's just one of several guys that you can get late at the quarterback position.
I actually did notice that with Fields. I believe it is on ESPN. Yeah, pick 126 over there at ESPN, QB 14 off the board. I understand being a little bit scared of the guy. I've seen the practice, completion percentage reports and stuff. And although we do think there's a better chance of Fields not being benched, I also wouldn't say it's exactly 0% as we have seen over the years. But yeah, guys, come on. If we can get Fields there at QB 14, definitely would have him in that group as well. So good stuff, Freedman. We're going to go with some running back talk now as we enter quarter 2 on the Fantasy Life Show. First, though, a quick word to our friends over at Premier National Sports. Freedman, I really do need to learn my neighbors because at this point, maybe one of them is a star high school athlete. I actually live right by the defending Ohio State football champion. Shout out Olentangy Liberty Patriots. So yeah, I should go ahead and just start telling everyone about Premier National Sports because if you are a high school athlete looking to take your game to the next level, Premier National Sports is the team to help you through that entire process. And man, from recruiting to NIL services, again, Premier National Sports, your one-stop shop for high school athletes and their families and taking that next step up in the collegiate level. Again, guys, tell your friends, tell your families, tell random people on the street. Help rising high school athletes take their game to that next level of personalized recruiting strategies and NIL education. Check them out if you haven't yet. You can get in touch with their team at premiernationalsports.com. Normies versus the nerds here on the Fantasy Life Show. Time to talk some running backs, Freedman. We got 3 guys who are a bit more expensive in home leagues, perhaps making you wonder, is the public a little bit too confident in their current ADP? Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb, and David Montgomery. I swear, Freedman, we are not the same on many more of these, but this is one where, once again, we do have the same pick. So let's talk about why we're buying Austin Eckler, selling Nick Chubb, and holding David Montgomery.
Yeah, well, Austin Eckler, in addition to being a friend of the show, you got to love that, and just a fantasy friend in general, like a guy who there aren't all that many NFL players who like are super knowledgeable of fantasy and like super into it. Austin Eckler, one of those guys. So you got to love that. But in terms of the on the field stuff, Eckler, I think, is still a legitimate player. And I've written about him, talked about him in a number of places. I have an article on the site looking at some of my favorite bench picks. Austin Eckler is one of those guys. He had a verified bounce back year last year in terms of like the efficiency. The year before that, his final season with the Chargers, he was injured for a lot of that season. And accordingly, he just didn't have the same juice. But last year, he was back to looking like Austin Eckler, just in terms of like his per touch efficiency. He was getting it done. So he's got that locked in pass catching role in an ascending offense. And then I will say, thinking about the show that I did last week with Dwayne McFarland, the data show, everyone should check it out.
Talk data to me.
We were talk data to me. We were talking about what makes running backs go boom. And so obviously it's great if running backs have that pass catching capability, but then obviously you want guys who are getting the goal line touches. I will say Eckler is not like right now slotted to get those goal line touches, but the dude led the league 2 years in a row in touchdowns in 2021, 2022. Like he actually has it in his bag where even though he's not like a big bodied running back, when he gets carries near the goal line, he's been excellent throughout his career at converting. So if for some reason the Commanders do decide to give Eckler more goal line work, he could massively exceed expectations when you take into account that he's already a pass catcher. So Eckler is very much someone that I am buying. Nick Chubb, selling. I mean, I don't think I really need to talk much about that. He's old. And then the coaching staff there is basically, they were like, yeah, he's old. Like, you know, he falls forward. Like the coaching staff really isn't even talking all that. Yeah, they're not really even all that positive on Nick Chubb. So I'm selling that. And then David Montgomery, similar to the Jared Goff conversation earlier, you know, that offense with the Lions is great, but could regress a little bit. And then David Montgomery, as good as he's been the past 2 years, he could start to lose even more work to Jahmyr Gibbs with a new play caller in town. So I'm holding David Montgomery. I think he's still a good running back, will have a good role and a good offense, but maybe just not as good this year as what we've seen in the 2 previous seasons.
With you again, all three of these. And I will say with Eckler, too, really does fit that flex with benefits prototype. We saw 2 games from Eckler last year with no Brian Robinson, where he cleared his 70% snap rate. Okay. They're not going to give him 25 carries per game or anything, but we don't need that. Look at his entire Chargers career when he was racking up RB1 finishes. He was never this 25 carry per game guy. If we can get that Devon Achane-esque role, that let's face it, Eckler kind of was the one bringing into fashion in the first place, 12 to 15 carries, 5 to 6 targets per game. It's an amazing offense. And when you actually look at the top 10 highest implied scoring offenses this year, Washington and the Chiefs, those are the only 2 teams where we actually don't have to pay a ton to get access to those backfields. So Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, even maybe training camp Hall of Famer Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I am fine throwing darts at all 3 of these guys. And again, Nick Chubb, a situation where when the price is right, that low in drafts, okay, guys. But again, the whole point of this exercise is telling you that on home leagues, the price is not necessarily right here. We are seeing Nick Chubb with an RB41 ADP on Yahoo right now. I mean, he's not inside the top 50 on any of these bigger money sites. So again, don't hate the player, hate the ADP. A last round dart on Nick Chubb isn't the worst thing in the world, but again, certainly someone I'm not going to be buying into at that sort of price tag. Montgomery's the interesting one, okay? RB22 on ESPN, 21 on Sleeper, 20 on Yahoo. He's RB24 or cheaper on our 3 bigger money sites. So with Demont Freedman, I do keep hearing the possibility for Gibbs to take over, and I hear where you're coming from. New OC. Yeah, I personally, and I think everyone else out there, agrees that Jahmyr Gibbs is better than David Montgomery. The Lions love this dude, though. They did give him a 2-year, $18 million extension last year for that reason. And just, there are James Conner vibes, or like as much as some of us maybe want this dude to go away, I'm not sure that Dan Campbell is one of them, man. I think they love the style, the physical, like attitude that he brings. And it's just 2023, man. RB31 ADP, RB15 finish. 2024, RB21 ADP, RB16 finish. And yes, if something happens to David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, he will be the RB1 overall in our rankings. That will happen. If something happened to Jahmyr Gibbs, man, Montgomery wouldn't be RB1, but I don't think you would need 2 hands to rank the number of running backs you would want ahead of him for that upcoming week. So with Demont, I'm with you on the hold where, no, I'll admit I'm not going out of my way for the guy in every single draft, but man, Freeman, I'm also not going to refrain from taking the guy if the price is right, which it does seem to be on a lot of these bigger money sites.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, we have the arbitrary confines of the game, which we created the game of like, all right, this is how we're going to talk about these guys. But if you gave me, hey, I could have 2 buys on this, I'm buying David Montgomery. He's been super consistent throughout his career, and then had much more upside the past 2 seasons with the Lions. And of course, he makes a perfect natural handcuff for Jahmyr Gibbs, but he's obviously usable right away. So he's got the high floor and the high ceiling if Jahmyr Gibbs is out. I think he's like the perfect zero RB guy. And that tends to be how I build a lot of my lineups. Jahmyr Gibbs, great, but David Montgomery, so much cheaper, but still he's going to have if he's healthy, he's going to have like 12 to 15 touchdowns and 1,100 yards. That's pretty good where you're able to get him in the draft. So David Montgomery, technically a hold, but man, I don't pass on him all that often when he's available.
It is a ridiculous. I was trying to pull it up real quick. Might be hard, but the Lions are easily number one in the NFL in terms of carries from inside the 5-yard line for their running backs, because the Eagles are up there for inside the 5. Once they get to the 1-yard line, they're not even close. But yeah, guys, as we've seen with Jared Goff, he's not exactly one that's going to start running the ball inside the 5. So if Demont even isn't that great, again, Lions offense still is pretty good. He's certainly going to be a candidate to fall into the end zone plenty of times. Now for 3 running backs who are more expensive in money leagues. And we're going to start to hit a trend here with some of these guys, because let's face it, a lot of rookies are going earlier on sites like RT Sports, Underdog, and FFPC. So, Freedman, we were talking Travion Henderson, Tajay Spears, and Jaguars rookie RB Bashaw Tutin. Buy, sell, hold, Freedman. Henderson, Spears, Tutin.
Yeah, I will say, and we talked about this earlier, but the drafters on these money sites, they just tend to be really aggressive on the rookies, and sometimes that pays off. You'll have rookies with massive campaigns, and sometimes you'll have rookies who do nothing. Travion Henderson is incredibly talented. I'll do the Ian thing. Shout out Ohio State. Was a great player there for 4 years at Ohio State, but never really, especially in the latter half of his career, he wasn't really the guy. They brought in Quinshon Judkins to be someone to really be more of the workhorse there. And I'm wondering if we could see something like that with Travion Henderson in the NFL. And, again, on the Talk Data to Me show that I did with Dwayne last week, we talked about Ramondre Stevenson a little bit. I'm in on Ramondre Stevenson, and Dwayne is out on Stevenson. But Stevenson, he's big. He's built like a workhorse. I think he's going to get the goal line carries. And even though I don't expect him to steal receiving work from Travion Henderson, for a big back, he is a good pass catcher. So he at least has that tool in his bag. And so I'm wondering if there's a situation where in an offense, maybe it's not as good as we expect. Obviously, I think Drake May is good, especially as a runner and what he can do for fantasy, but maybe that Patriots offense is just average, right? If that's the case, and Ramondre Stevenson is the lead back, maybe Travion Henderson is just more of a pass catcher, and that's how they use him, even though if they use him as a full-time back, he could be amazing. So I'm selling Travion Henderson, especially because I think he's really expensive. Tajay Spears is cheaper. There's the possibility that he ends up actually being the lead back, but even if not, that he just splits time pretty evenly. And so he's interesting. I have him as a hold. And then Bashaw Tutin, I have as a buy. He's incredibly cheap, but he could actually end up being the best running back within that Jags offense. And if we think that Jags offense is going to take a step forward, and Tutin is the most explosive guy there who can catch the passes out of the backfield, he can sort of do it all, then he would be the guy that I want to take a shot on because he's cheap. So Travion Henderson, I view him as kind of like a version of Bashaw Tutin, obviously higher drafted, but in terms of what they could do in their offenses, they're similar, but Tutin is so much cheaper. That's why I'm buying him and selling Henderson.
Henderson could be more efficient. He's a better player. I think we all agree than Tutin. But if that Jaguars offense is a lot better overall than the Patriots, which I also think we would say is a possibility, we could see those fantasy points work out that way. We're on the same page, holding Spears. Again, we've kind of talked about it a lot. We're just 1B. I think the price discrepancy between him and Tony Pollard is far too wide. Love the opportunity to get in on Spears. Someone who was leaned on down the stretch. I know he got that concussion, I believe, in week 17 or so, but man, he was barely taken off the field before that. Literally, guys, was a top 5 running back in PPR points during the fantasy playoffs. Amir Abdullah was RB6 during that same stretch, so I'm not saying that's everything to go off of as we get into 2025, but again, showed off that explosive pass catching skill set, and that is why I'm buying Travion Henderson, okay? Now, admittedly, haven't gone super far out of my way for him in drafts, been taking wide receivers a bit more often, I would say, in that range, but just more than anything, I do want to try to invest in this pass catching explosive RB archetype, especially when it is is with a Josh McDaniels offense where, again, from James White to Shane Vereen to all these guys over the years, we have seen him keep these dudes involved. I will laugh at it a little bit, Freedman, because as much as everyone loves to poke fun at, we're about to hear these running backs being used in the slot and out wide. In July, we're like, it's going to be funny. We all know it's BS. And then it happens in August with TreVeyon Henderson, and people are unironically actually getting hyped about it. So, yes, TreVeyon, fantastic pass protection. I get it. And yes, he can go out and do good things in the receiving game as well. But again, very wishful thinking to think that anyone is really going to be making an overly big impact as a true receiver. Even the Devon Achane stuff from last year, guys, like go back and watch it. He had one really cool catch downfield on like a post. Very, very high percentage of the other stuff lined up in the slot or out wide was just simple screens. Hey, good for McDaniels for, again, making that happen for him, but not saying that, again, he is necessarily an amazing NFL pure wide receiver. So, yeah, with Tootin, man, this is just, I guess it's just Freeman. We all see the combine stuff. The speed score is borderline erotic. I get it. This dude caught 23 passes for 81 yards. Can we stop with the receiving upside here? Like, that is horrendous, okay? The targets per route run and this and that. But at some point, you got to convert it into something. And you know as well as I do that if we were seeing even half the amount of training camp hype that we've had for Tank Bigsby for Bashaw Tootin, the ADP would be out of control. Like, he's the clear-cut RB3 in Jacksonville right now. And I don't think Etienne and Bigsby are just going to disappear.
Okay, all of that is fair. I will say with Tootin, and to your point, yes, the blazing 40 time is definitely a part of this. But I feel like I've just seen enough out of Etienne and Bigsby to say the talent, I don't think it's there. And maybe I'm just wrong, but I'm just saying I'm eliminating those guys, and what's left is Tootin, and he's the unknown in that he's a rookie, and we know he's super athletic, and we do know that the GM there specifically highlighted him both when he was interviewing for the job and then after they drafted him. So I hate to be like, the fantasy playoffs, but like I can see a situation where earlier in the year, Tootin isn't that important, but he starts to become more important as the season goes along. And I think that perspective is dangerous when you're drafting a guy as like your RB22, but when you're drafting a guy as your RB40, you can kind of like, that's someone who's going to sit on your bench for a while anyway. So what he does early in the season doesn't matter so much. So because he's a developmental guy, I don't mind taking the shot on him. But you're absolutely right. Like, there's a very good chance that Bashaw Tootin ends up doing nothing.
But the price point is true. Again, Tank Bigsby, Travis Etienne, Bashaw Tootin, all very affordable because we don't know what's going on in this backfield. It's the exact same thing with the Dallas Cowboys. So again, hard to be too upset about any of those picks. I will say, though, I'm the only fantasy life ranker with Tank Bigsby ranked as my RB1 in Jacksonville right now. You can check out those rankings for yourself at fantasylife.com. Code Freedman, of course. Time for quarter three, guys. We're talking some ADP wide receiver discrepancies. Wide receivers who are a bit more expensive in home leagues, guys. It's again using Yahoo, ESPN, and Sleeper. Not that there is anything wrong with that. I have leagues in every single one of those leagues, and also the bigger money leagues. We're just comparing some ADP here on the Fantasy Life Show. Cooper Kupp, Zay Flowers, and DK Metcalf Freedman. I believe this is the last one we are the same on. We are buying DK Metcalf. We are selling old man Cooper Kupp, who looks like he is actually a boy band rock star now, holding Mr. Zay Flowers. Why, Freedman? Why?
All right, well, let's start with Metcalf. I mean, I think the dude is going to get peppered with targets in Pittsburgh. And it's not to say that he is a great fit for Aaron Rodgers, but Rodgers is going to have to throw the ball to someone, and Metcalf is like the clear candidate now that George Pickens is gone. And I think Metcalf has shown throughout his career that he has a reasonably high floor. And if it just clicks, if it actually does really click between Metcalf and Rodgers, then he could have a really high ceiling too. So Metcalf is the guy that I'm buying. Kupp, I think the ceiling is gone, and he's going to have to compete against another really strong receiver there in Jackson Smith and Jigba in Seattle. And not just a strong receiver, but a guy who plays primarily in the slot and who at this point does what Kupp does, but does it significantly better. So I just don't see a situation where Kupp is going to get a ton of target volume. And then that Seahawks offense might not be as good as we would want with Sam Darnold transitioning from the Vikings to the Seahawks. And then Zay Flowers, like we've seen him in this offense for the past 2 years. He's a good player, but he just doesn't get that much target volume. Maybe he progresses a little bit, but I think generally what Zay Flowers has done the past 2 years is kind of what we can expect Zay Flowers to do this year. And I think he's being drafted accordingly. His draft price seems fair, so I'm holding him.
With DK Metcalf, man, someone that I've drafted, he's up there, I think, in my top 5 most drafted wide receivers of the offseason. But I've done that, and then I've looked back on it and then just been terrified of it. I'll admit, okay, he goes around. He's going, especially in some of these best ball formats. I know we're not playing anymore, but I'm just telling you my own struggles. Like round 4, round 5, it is tough because he has been a career wide receiver 3, boomer bust, other than that fantastic second year. But Freeman, I think I'm suffering from one of the worst disorders that any fantasy football player who's been around can have. PTASD, post-traumatic Arthur Smith disorder, man. It affects so many of us around the country, around the world even, but I think we need to get past it and look at this depth chart rationally. Who else is going to get the ball? Aaron Rodgers is saying Roman Wilson needs to believe in himself. That's what's next, an ayahuasca trip? Maybe, go for it, guys. I like Calvin Austin, but let's face it, I think I saw some sort of training camp report saying that Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson had caught like one ball apiece over these past 2 games. I like Calvin Austin. His highlights are awesome. I've even put together a highlight reel for the man. But come on, he's not going to be the reason why DK Metcalf doesn't have a great season. We've avoided the Keenan Allen landmine. Jay Bryant and Jonnu Smith, okay? Maybe Jonnu Smith is really the answer here. Wouldn't put it past old Artie, but man, it does seem like those targets are just going to be flowing. It's even been overstated sometimes, man. Like the A.J. Brown, his rookie year, he didn't get enough targets for sure. Next year, though, he was injured and he was going to be on 120, 130 target pace. Also saw that with Drake London, and he was getting going as well. So yes, everyone, I know Bijan Robinson should have gotten a few more touches than Tyler Algier that rookie year. He still had, I think, 297 combined carries and targets. It wasn't like the dude was on the bench. And guess what? Tyler Algier isn't some horrible running back in his own right. So, Freedman, are you with me, man? I feel like DK Metcalf, if he had a different offensive coordinator, I think people would be way more behind it.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Some of it also is that Rodgers isn't so much of a deep ball passer at this point in his career. And you think that's kind of where DK Metcalf might excel, is like the big bodied guy who's super athletic and can win downfield. So stylistically, I think that's part of it. People thinking Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf don't really fit together, but Aaron Rodgers is going to have to throw somewhere. And the fact that people are like, well, Jonnu Smith it's like, okay, no. If we're talking about the number 2 tight end on a team and him stealing targets from the number 1 wide receiver, like the number 1 wide receiver has already won. So I'm not going to say that Devontae Adams is the comp for DK Metcalf in terms of like, hey, this is the type of usage this guy is going to get. But Aaron Rodgers really does like to focus on 1 wide receiver, and it's got to be Metcalf in this offense.
150 million reasons for the Steelers organization to force feed that man the football. So now on to 3 guys who are more expensive in money leagues. We're all over the place on this one, Freedman, because we got Jawan Jennings, Tetero McMillan, not Ted McMillan. Mama McMillan does not like that. You can call him T-Mac or Tetero, just not Tet. And also Christian Kirk. Again, these are guys who are going a bit earlier in money leagues. Freedman, you were buying Jawan Jennings. I hear you there. I do wish the calf injury was a situation that we could feel a little better about. Maybe it's a little bit more of a contract-related issue. We don't know. That said, if he's ready to go in week 1, Brandon Ayuk's out of the picture for the time being. No Deebo Samuel. I hear you on Jawan Jennings. You want to sell Tetero McMillan, which we're going to get into in just a second because I am buying him. You're holding Christian Kirk. I'm selling Christian Kirk, but I see where you're coming from. He's still a good football player. Profiles as a number 2 in that Houston offense. That, again, hopefully could be a little bit better next season. But just really wanted to get your thoughts on T-Mac because, again, this is a guy where it's a rookie, yes, but you look at this passing game. Is it Adam Thielen? Is it Xavier Legette? Like, why are we betting against the number 8 overall pick having some ridiculous target total with a quarterback who, again, we saw at least is capable of not completely sucking?
I'm just saying, if in the first segment I'm talking about how I want to sell Bryce Young, then I'm probably not going to be too optimistic about his rookie wide receiver. And this is really nothing against Tetero McMillan, who could end up having a decent career, but the offensive situation isn't good. And then I will say this. I don't know if Adam Thielen, I can't believe this is like the second show that like I've talked with Ian about Adam Thielen and me having some sort of like Adam Thielen infatuation, but like Adam Thielen has actually been good the past 2 years. Like good in general, but then especially good for a dude who was like 34 and then 33 and then 34. So now, like, do I want to be saying, oh, Adam Thielen, the 35-year-old slot receiver, is going to be the reason Mr. McMillan doesn't have success in the NFL? Like, no, but Adam Thielen has been good the past 2 years, 1,000 yards receiving his first season in Carolina, and then actually a better per game season last year in his second season with the team. I don't think Thielen is just evaporating. And then you also have, I'm not going to say Xavier Legette is going to be the guy who keeps McMillan from having a good rookie year, but he's also a first rounder who might develop in his second season. So if it's an offense that isn't that good, and then you've got a really established slot receiver in Thielen, and then a second-year first-rounder who develops, maybe McMillan doesn't have the target volume that everyone thinks. So I'm just like trying to be a little more reasonable about this in relation to McMillan's ADP, which has come down, but is still pretty high.
It is a wild receiver room they have going on in Carolina right now. Hunter Renfrow has been getting a lot of love, actually coming back now from that battle that had him down like at 159 pounds. So great seeing Renfrow back in. We know what this dude can do when he is healthy. Also, shout out to all my cokeheads out there. Jalen Coker having a nice camp as well. Jimmy Horn Jr. even getting a lot of love. So no, I don't think any of those guys are going to be pushing T-Mac for targets. But hey, I did see our resident guillotine master over here at Fantasy Life, Paul Charchian. By the way, guillotine leagues, paid ones that are live. So make sure you guys check that out. Guillotine, the newest, and I won't want to say newest. It's just the best form of fantasy football, if you will. Really, really fun way of playing. Anyway, Paul Charchian threw it out there, Freedman. Let's trade Adam Thielen back to the Minnesota Vikings and see what happens. He can still play. They need a wide receiver during the Jordan Addison suspension. I imagine Thielen would be fine with that. Again, no reason to believe it's necessarily going to happen. I hear what Freeman's saying. Thielen has low-key still been very solid these last 2 years. Really would clear up a lot of things for all parties involved, though. So again, those are some wide receivers with some pretty big ADP discrepancies. Now get your fours up, everyone. Fourth quarter, time for some tight end talk. Three tight ends who are a bit more expensive in home leagues than what we're seeing on the bigger money sites. We have Mark Andrews, Jonnu Smith, and Dallas Goedert. Last one, I swear for real, this time that Freedman and I are in lockstep with. We are buying Mark Andrews at this price, selling Jonnu Smith, and it really is a wild one on some of these. And ADP does take a long time at times, people, to actually correct. But yeah, Jonnu Smith, even if you actually like what he could do in the Steelers' Arthur Smith offense, we're talking about the tight end 9 on Sleeper, tight end 11 on Yahoo. No way, Jose. Late round dart, that's fine, but we're selling him at those prices. We're holding on Dallas Goedert, someone who we know and believe to be a very good tight end, just only one football to go around that crowded run for his offense. So this is a situation, though, Freedman, with Mark Andrews, where we've seen some underlying numbers. I mean, career high touchdowns last year. He was number 1 in ESPN's open score separating. I do wonder if it's just, the fondness for Isaiah Likely, who's very good in his own right, but let's face it, didn't exactly take the starting job away. And also, our lasting memory of Andrews, that late fumble, and then also the drop in the 2-point conversion, making us treat this dude who's hardly, past his prime at this point, as someone who now is going outside the top 7 tight ends on some of these bigger money sites. Buying Mark Andrews, Freedman, I don't think I've drafted enough of him yet this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. There could be a number of reasons kind of outside of his actual production numbers why people might be a little bit down on Andrews, but I'll just also add Isaiah Likely dealing with an injury, uncertain for week 1. And, injuries, once guys experience them in the preseason, those injuries have a higher likelihood of recurring or being re-aggravated, lingering into the season. So Mark Andrews, I think early in the season could be someone who especially is extra productive without Isaiah Likely, and then Likely just might not be the same player this year that he was last year because of the injury, which would give Mark Andrews all the more of an edge in terms of production.
By the way, I believe it was finally Scott Pianowski, the great legend of the fantasy football industry. He was the one who coined the phrase, like, injuries are basically going to find you once the season starts. Don't seek them out in August. I've been going nuts trying to attribute that. So shout out Scott, friend of the show. Appreciate you, my man. 3 tight ends, though, more expensive in money leagues now. So again, maybe the sharps, if you will, know something that us normies don't. Brenton Strange, Tyler Warren, and Colston Loveland Freeman. So once again, we got 2 rookies in here, but this time we are different all all over the place. You want to buy Colson Loveland, sell Tyler Warren, and hold Brenton Strange. I want to buy Tyler Warren, sell Brenton Strange, hold on Colson Loveland. So during our projection battle show, you and Dwayne kind of went back and forth on Tyler Warren. We got the whole quarterback situation going on there. And with Anthony Richardson being someone who does seem to be, again, getting the lead, at least for the moment, on Daniel Jones, we'll see what happens in the preseason games. I can't see where you're coming from there. Colson Loveland's a really difficult one, though, because, again, he's someone where I'm buying all over the place in Dynasty. I believe in the talent. I believe in the long-term outlook, but I also believe that Cole Kmet isn't completely going away. I also believe that DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Luther Burden, even Olamide Zaccheaus in the year 2025 of our Lord is someone that could actually steal some of these targets. And, oh, yeah, I hope Caleb Williams doesn't suck anymore. So, Freedman, it's one of these things where I don't want to be out on Colson Loveland. That's why I'm holding him here, and that's why you're buying him here. But at the same time, I see a lot of people like really banking on Colson Loveland being almost the tight end that you need in drafts this year, and it's really tough for me to get behind him that strongly.
Yeah, I will say maybe only in this trio of Strange, Warren, and Loveland will I say Loveland is a buy. Because in general, I'm really not wanting him, but I just like him more than Warren and Strange, and he's cheap enough to where at this ADP, I'm fine taking the shot on his upside. But to your point, he has a ton of competition there, but the points in his favor. Caleb Williams, maybe he develops in his second season, and he's gotten an upgrade at play caller with new coach Ben Johnson. So I see the upside for Loveland, and that's what I'm buying in. Selling Tyler Warren, I will say, like, Warren, I think, is also super talented, but I don't like the situation of Anthony Richardson as the guy who might get the week one starting job. I think that's bad for the pass offense in general. So that would hurt Tyler Warren in Indianapolis. And then also, if Anthony Richardson is the quarterback, I think that puts Warren's chances of getting any of those goal line carries near zero. But I mean, he's going to have to compete with Michael Pittman, with Josh Downs. I don't think he's a better NFL pass catcher than those guys. And if it's a run first, slow offense with an inaccurate quarterback in Anthony Richardson, I really don't want the number 3 pass catcher on that team.
And we were talking before the show a little bit about that hidden potential rushing upside for Tyler Warren. I mean, Shane Steichen spent 2021 and 2022 as the Eagles offensive coordinator, seemingly helped, get the tush push moving forward as the focal point of the Eagles goal line offense. I thought we were maybe going to see even more of it in Indianapolis. I do believe they sprinkled in some, but more than often than not, we're just kind of getting Richardson and the shotgun and just doing design QB runs from that way. But yeah, man, if it is going to be Daniel Jones under center, I think it's far more likely we see Warren getting those opportunities. And maybe that is something that we just start seeing a bit more across the NFL. The Ravens have started using Mark Andrews in that role. Packers have Tucker Kraft. I think it makes sense in that sort of rugby scrum not to have your starting quarterback be that guy. If you have someone else qualified, Tyler Warren does fit that bill. So, hey, Colson Loveland, tight end 16 on Yahoo. Tyler Warren is tight end 14. We can both get behind those prices as true later round darts. Again, it's just more so that top 12 price tag. That's a lot for an unproven rookie. But hey, guys, you want to check us out for yourself? Make sure you go to fantasylife.com. We do have our ADP tool where, before your home draft, money draft, whatever you're playing, we can help you out and hopefully get your eye on the right prize. So appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, for Freedman, for producer Matt, for producer Kelsey, I'm Ian. Thanks again. Until next time, take care, everybody.